Hello, my name is Jesse Richardson, and I'm here to present to you today about Crystal Palace Football Club. I'd like to begin with the financial performance and position of the company and the organization. And I wanted to start out with the more positive aspects of it. And as you can see by the slide that you're looking at now, there isn't much, sadly to say. I'd like to start out with saying turnover is beginning to trend upward. If you see by the graph down below the top row, it isn't at its high. It is at its highest now. It took a little dip for a minute there, but it is back up by a considerable amount of money, 49 million pounds to be specific, and that is obviously always good to see. Commercial and broadcast are trending upward and have been trending upward for years. Broadcast especially taking a giant leap from 2015 and 16 to now, nearly closing in on doubling. And like evident from the slide before this, this is all the negatives related to the financial performance and position of the company, sadly to say. First of all, match day income has been trending downward after peaking in 2016. That was obviously 5 years ago now, so the fact that it hasn't come back up is a bit alarming, but obviously COVID does play into it now, but for it to not come back in 17, 18, or 19 should raise a little bit of alarm. Next, expenses have also been climbing consistently and sharply. You will see a chart on that on the following slide after this one. They've also been operating at a loss for years. The table that you looked at in the slide previous showed 6 years, and every single one of those 6 years they have been operating on a loss and had not seen a profit. They've been frequently netting a loss before taxes and interest as well, which is obviously never good if you're losing money before you lose that big a percentage. You're going to lose a larger percentage of money after taxes and interest as well, so it's only making things far worse for them. Spending is down, but in the grand scheme, it is not that far down. They should be cutting it farther than they are. They're only cutting it by a few million, which on paper sounds good, but when seeing their spending, it's a drop in the bucket. Their wages represent 93% of their profits, meaning in layman's terms, 93% of the money they bring in goes right back to the players, leaving 7% left for every other possible expense that a football club could incur. They faced a significant loss in 18, and they have not rebounded, seeing an even bigger loss in 2020, my apologies, that being 58 million pounds, and we'll talk about that in a few. So basic financial analysis, in the simplest possible terms, it's not going well. As you can tell by the slide prior to this one. If you focus in the bottom right-hand corner of the slide, the biggest losses started in 18, but obviously, as evident by the graph, they've been losing money for years prior. The largest loss began in 18, and then they only turned a profit in 2019 by selling off their biggest star. The chart down to the bottom right corner shows the operating profit before player trading, not factored into it, and obviously you can see they almost lost 40 million pounds. But on the chart from earlier, if you look at it, it'll say that they ran a profit of $7 million, which is good. Obviously, a profit is a profit, but the fact that it took you selling your largest named star in order to get to said profit should raise some alarm. And the worst alarm, it's not shown on this chart, but it does say a lot. They incurred a 58 million pound loss in 2020, which obviously you can chalk some of that up to COVID, but at the same time, that still should not happen. And in the bottom left-hand corner, you'll see expenses on the top and wages on the bottom. You see how steadily that has been climbing up. And like I said before, they are 93% of their profit goes right to their wages. So cutting those down will be beneficial, but we will get into that in a few as well. So assessment of their future financial prospects. They invested 20 million pounds in a training academy. The training academy is listed as a category 1, which simply means it's the best training academy possible, which is great for the future. They're able to bring in more players, more young stars, and build a team that'll mean success in the future, and success can mean a lot more money. They have 11 players making over average salaries. After some research, I found the average salary tends to float around about 3.3 million pounds. They have 11 players over that, with 4 to 5 of them being in the 6 to 7 million range. And like I said earlier, 93% of their profits go to wages, so cutting this down will be beneficial, but again, we will discuss that in a few. This quote right here is directly taken from the club's president. The club has taken on some external debt to have as much liquidity as possible. This was in response to the 58 million pound loss after the COVID season. They still want to be able to operate like a football club, make moves, get players. They don't want to be dead in the water because of this. And also on top of that, they took out 25 million pounds of long-term interest-free loans to have more money in the company. So where are we going moving forward? First of all, like I've mentioned plenty of times throughout this so far, bring the wages down. 93% of your profit is an insane amount. But the only problem on top of this is, while that is the simplest answer on paper, it is the hardest one to enact in actuality, because how do you cut wages and still have a functional football club? The hard thing to balance. You can't really cut the biggest stars because most of them are earning that money. They deserve the $7+ million contract. So how do you work that out? That is a problem that is going to have to be looked at with managers and CEOs and CFOs alike. Second, we should diversify. Broadcasting accounts for 80% of the revenue, which isn't uncommon for the Premier League. Most teams do get the most money from the revenue, but 80% is a hefty amount. And if anything would ever go wrong with a broadcasting deal, that could be sincerely dangerous. Turnovers trending upward, as evident by the graph in the first slide. And obviously you want to keep that trending up. That's common sense, but it deserves repeating. If you can keep any level of profit coming in, it's going to be beneficial. Possibly a new manager coming in. I saw in several articles while researching this, they lost 11 straight games. Their manager isn't exactly sure of his future with the company. And the fans in the poll that I saw earlier, 78% were fine with him getting out of there and getting a new start. So a new coach, those new training grounds that are Category 1 could be a nice big future for the organization, bring in more success, and more success could mean more money. And also, Crystal Palace has a women's football club, the Crystal Palace Ladies Football Club, and being able to have another revenue stream if they're trying to profit to filter in and help out with us, the Crystal Palace Football Club, that could be nothing but beneficial there. Here are my references. I do sincerely apologize for them being so small, but I had 10 of them, I believe, and it was hard to fit that on the screen. But thank you very much for listening to my presentation.